Good evening. Thank you very much, and I thank the organizers for the invitation. It's an honor for me to be here. I think that occasion, which was initiated by the Südosten Europagesellschaft, is a very good opportunity for me to deliver some of my ideas about the youth policy in Europe to you. I'm absolutely aware of the fact that being a Hungarian, there might be some questions in the audience about Hungary and the recent development of Hungary, the Hungarian political developments, and so on and so forth. But in advance, please take it into account that I'm an independent member of the European Commission. So, however tempting is to ask me about Hungarian political developments, it's not my capacity to make comments on the Hungarian political developments, or at least I can echo only the official line of the European Commission. However, I hope that today's discussion, or tonight's discussion, will be useful for us, because I will talk about, basically, about Europe's youth, our next generation and the next generation of Europe. And I will talk about the issues the next generation of Europe faces now and will face in the future. I will talk about basically economic issues and some of the political issues, and of course at the end of my speech I will talk about some of the possible ways of handling of the refugee crisis from the perspective of the youth policy and education policy in Europe. So I would like to look at the role of education and youth policies have to play in tackling youth unemployment, poverty, and exclusion. I would also like to outline how at European level we are responding to the refugee crisis and helping member states integrate newly arrived migrants through education. The next generation is our future, Europe's future. We hear this so often that it has almost turned into a cliché. Yet too often, when we talk about the biggest challenges facing us today, we fail to mention young people. Our newspapers are full of articles about the economy, the situation on the job market, and the refugee crisis. But we say too little about how all of this is affecting young people. And what is more, we often do not take their specific concerns or views into account when we act. It is true that today's young generation is on the whole better educated than any before it. They are growing up in a rapidly changing world full of opportunities. However, not all young people can grasp them. There are the haves and the have-nots. Of the 19 million young people in Europe, 27 million, almost one-third, are at risk of poverty and social exclusion. 14 million are neither in employment nor in education or training. Despite some recent improvements, the jobless rate among the young is still over 40% in some countries, and across the EU, on average, 1 out of 5 young persons is out of work. That's a number, more than 4 million young people unemployed in the EU. This is certainly not, this is certainly not a recipe for social inclusion. Instead, I can see in this the seeds of alienation and marginalization. So where does this leave us? For me, it takes us back to the importance of education. Education opens doors to the labor market. Young people who have had the opportunity to pick up relevant skills from an early age stand a much better chance of finding a job. And employment is still the best safety net against exclusion. That's why this European Commission has put education and youth employment at the center of our efforts to boost economic growth and job creation in Europe. Much of what we do in this field is focused on raising the level and quality of education and training. For example, we are continuing to work with member states to reduce early school leaving and to raise higher education levels. By the end of this decade, we want to lower the share of young people who drop out of school to below 10% and increase the percentage of higher education graduates to at least 40%. This means helping European countries to reform their national education systems so that schools teach the skills young people need to land a job. And this focus on educational reform and employability requires action in a whole series of areas, such as better training of teachers, more mobility and learning exchanges, and closer partnerships between universities, business, and research. All these steps can help prepare students for a successful career, for a life that they can take control of. And all these steps help to ensure that the next generation is engaged in the civic, political, and social life of their community. I've been working with EU education ministers to make stronger use of the tools we have at our disposal. Our cooperation in education and training and youth policy, for example, as well as our funding programs like Erasmus Plus for education, training, youth and sport, and the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions for young researchers. With education ministers, I have set new priorities for our cooperation, among them inclusive education, and with European youth ministers, I have agreed to focus our work on the social inclusion and civic participation of young people and better integration into the labour market. And there is more coming up. Together with Marianne Thyssen, the Commissioner for Employment, Social Affairs, Skills and Labour Mobility, I'm planning to present a skills agenda for Europe in May. This will be a crucial agenda. I just mentioned the more than 4 million unemployed young people, but you have to take into account that we have in the European economies more than 2 million vacancies at the same time. Vacancies in the ICT sector, in the services sector, and in other branches of the economy. So there is a clear skills mismatch between the performance of the education systems and the demands of the labor market. We have to do something, and we have to find a response to that challenge. This will be a response to the skills mismatch, the skills agenda, that locks too many young people out of the job market. But we will also look to the long term. The modernization of higher education will play a crucial role here, as will digital skills and teaching entrepreneurship. The latter is particularly important to me, as it helps people acquire the horizontal skills that will serve them throughout their lives and careers. However, the only problem is not only educating digital skills and entrepreneurship. The picture is a little bit rosier than it is in reality. Data shows that 1 in 4 European citizens has fundamental problems with literacy. And 1 in 4 European citizens have fundamental problems with numeracy. So we have to teach European citizens to read and to count. And then, on the basis of that fundamentals, we can educate them in digital skills and entrepreneurship. Unfortunately, this is a sad story. We are in the 21st century. We are very proud of the achievements of the European culture and education systems. We usually think ourselves as the front runners of the world civilization. And if you look into the deep reality, you will find a lot of social frustration, social alienation, impoverishment, and lack of basic social and human skills. That's why the stakes are high. Over the next decade, almost half the jobs employers will be offering in the EU will be for the high-skilled. And there will be a real need for digital and entrepreneurial skills. At European level, we are providing funding through programs like Erasmus+ to help young people get the extra study or work experience abroad to increase their chances of employment. For instance, until 2020, Erasmus+ will provide 450,000 traineeship opportunities. Going abroad to study or train makes students more confident, more adaptable, the characteristics that more than 9 in 10 employers are looking for. The figures do not lie. 5 years after graduation, the unemployment rate of young people who study or train abroad is 23%, lower than among their peers who stayed home. The effect is strongest in Eastern and Southern Europe, the regions where youth unemployment rates are the highest. Mobility and free movement of people are fundamental to European cooperation. However, the reasons behind today's mobility flows are not always positive. Recent data suggest it is often down to sheer necessity. People from Southern, Central and Eastern European countries with high youth unemployment rates go to a few countries with better employment opportunities, and to Germany in particular. We need a Europe where it is not low quality education or dysfunctional or closed labor markets that force people to be mobile. People and knowledge should move freely because they want to acquire fresh knowledge and skills in new settings. It means we need education of high quality in all member states, as well as well-functioning labor markets that can absorb those making the transition from education to work. Reforming education systems so that they enable Europeans to live their dreams is one step. Another is to listen to their views. A number of young people may have turned away from traditional forms of political participation. But they do have views. They are just finding different ways of expressing them. And I want to make contact with them through these new channels. I have made a pledge to reach out to 1 million young people by the end of my term as Commissioner. This will involve face-to-face meetings as well as debates on social media and the European Youth Portal that the Commission is running. I also want all of us to make a stronger effort to reach out to those who are most disadvantaged. Because everyone deserves a chance in life. And because exclusion can lead young people to break off personal relationships, drift to the margins of society, and sometimes even into violent extremism. I will very soon present concrete initiatives that will help us reach out to these young people. This will involve strengthening youth work and volunteering, for instance. I want to see our young people succeed, but for this, we need to involve them and enable them to use their full potential. This brings me to an issue I mentioned at the beginning, the refugee crisis. The arrival of more than 1 million refugees from countries with different cultural traditions and different languages poses a real challenge for the European Union. The Commission is preparing a set of initiatives to support the integration of refugees and migrants, which it will present this spring. Education will be at the center of this. It has a critical role to play in helping refugees and migrants, those who stay, find their place in our job markets and societies. These new arrivals need to be fully integrated in the education system, from early childhood education to higher education to adult learning. Moreover, there is a problem of the unaccompanied children. You may know that there is more than 100,000 unaccompanied children as refugees here in the European Union. That's a problem for the education systems, but that's a problem for the preschool education systems as well. That's a problem for the educational activities in refugee camps. We have to make them prepared for school education, to educate them in social behavior, in democratic socialization, teaching them democratic values and teaching them the languages of the EU member states where they are. That's a huge challenge for all the education systems inside the EU. We need teachers, we need language courses, we need more financing, and we need a more flexible structure of education for the kids and the adults as well. And we are supporting the member states in those efforts. The Commission is working with national academic recognition centers from across Europe so they can share their experiences in helping refugees to have their degrees recognized. We want to help students to continue their education or map their qualifications as quickly as possible. Through Erasmus+, we will also offer online language courses, and we are working to make it easier for refugee researchers to participate in our Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions, as some of them might have difficulties with the eligibility criteria because of their refugee status. Ladies and gentlemen, Europe is facing tough challenges. The decisions we take today will affect the lives of our children and generations to come. We have a responsibility to get these decisions right. Young people deserve a bright future. It is up to us to ensure they have the chance to make the most of their lives. Thank you for your attention.